Got to say something. Lightweight, step it aside when we come in. Feel it in your chest, the syllables get pumping. People on the street get panic and start running. Words on loose leaf sheet, complete coming. I jump on my mind, I summon the rhyme, I'm dumping. Healing the blind, I promise to let the sun in. Sick of the dark ways, we march to the drumming. Jump when they tell us that they want to see jumping. Dad, I want to see some fist pumping. Lift something, take back what's yours. Say something that you know they might attack you for. Cause I'm sick of being treated like I have before. Like a stupid standing for what I'm standing for. Like this war's really just a different brand of war. Like it doesn't cater to rich.
All right, welcome to Wide Awake Radio. I am Charlie McGrath, your host. My website is wideawakenews.com, and if you're listening, there's about 80 people in the chat room now. If you want to come over and join them, go to wideawakenews.com and click on Wide Awake Radio. And if I don't announce our Facebook page, my sister will actually physically throttle me, so I'm going to mention that you can follow us, the radio program and the YouTube channel, Krabby Dog Tricks. You can follow all my videos and the upcoming guests on this show if you go to facebook.com/wideawakeradio. She does a diligent job of updating that each and every day. Okay, we're going to have on tonight Warren Pollock. He was the guest host Monday. Everybody heard me thank him last night for bailing me out because I was stuck in Denver in the spookiest airport on the planet. And Warren came on with Dr. Flower and did a great job. And I couldn't let the week go by without having my live one-on-one Warren interview. So I asked him to come back on tonight, and he graciously agreed to. So we're going to bring him on in just a second. Obviously, after the show last night, while it was still fresh in my head, I put out a video, and thank you to everybody who had great response and great comments from that video. And it was just, the name of the video was Legislating Insanity, because that's what we're doing now. This whole event in Arizona has been turned into a political wedge, a political tool, and it's sickening is what it is. And I really feel the wind coming out of the sails today of the alternative media community. I hope this is just a gasp, okay, we're going to sit back and take the hit, take the media's hit on alternative media, on people using free speech to try to, project the way they feel about what's going on in this country. But I truly hope this is just a deflationary moment in this movement that is this awakening movement. Everybody I know that's in this movement, and they're coast to coast, they're country to country. I mean, these are people, I've spoke to people as far away as Germany, and as close as 2 blocks away. This movement is I think, personally, it is the only solution to the problems that we face, is the awakening of the American people, or whatever free country you happen to be living in right now that you're still free. The awakening of the citizenry of that country is the only answer. That is it. There is no other answer. There is no grab your guns, we're going to take it back. That's a losing proposition. Can't be won. Okay? If you were foolish enough to think that, then the only thing that's going to happen is you're going to be, in a decade, you'll be the butt of a joke, and in the near future, you're going to be a 30-second soundbite. So I want to start the show off by saying that. If you think that you can affect change by being a maniac or by be doing something that is barbaric, even more barbaric than what has been done to this country. It's hard to say. It's hard to draw a comparison to the raping of a nation by the upper echelons of the elite financial industry, or an outright crime of violence. They're both disgusting, and neither one of them is going to be a solution to the dilemma this country faces right now. We're not going to get there by grabbing guns. We're not. It's not going to happen. I know there's a lot of people in alternative media that romanticize about this. I'm not going to say a lot. I know there's a segment of alternative media that romanticizes the Mad Max scenario, the ultimate breakdown crisis. And maybe it's just me that's feeling somewhat deflated today because the small segment that thinks that is the bad apple ruining the bunch. The vast majority of the people in this community listening to this radio show, following the YouTube channel, following Warren's channel, the vast majority of them are awake to the truth, and they want change, and they're not afraid to push back. They're not afraid to get out and say something. Pushing back is not grabbing a gun. That is committing suicide. That is destroying a movement. You're as guilty as anybody co-opting something like the Tea Party when you go out there and play the fool, thinking you're a patriot, thinking you're a hero. It's not the case. And if anybody wants to call up and debate that, I'm more than willing to go down that road. There is no internal movement in history inside of a nation that was sparked by violence that has turned out to be successful and sustainable. Okay? All the great leaders in history, all of them, had a very simple message. Non-compliance. Peaceful non-compliance. I'm not saying don't defend yourself. I'm saying use your head. All right, that's enough of that rant. I'm not going to... Warren, I'm going to bring up Warren. Warren Pollock, WEPollock.com, inflectionpoints.com, W.E. Pollock on YouTube. A good friend of mine and a good friend of the show. Thanks for joining me again tonight, Warren.
Well, it's great to be with you. I wonder how nonviolent the American Revolution was, though, Charlie. I just am wondering, because at some point there was a tremendous amount of violence from the British and also from the Americans. And I think, when you dissect that revolution, you realize that George Washington was a major landholder, major land speculator, and it may have been more about profits than anything else. The revolution may have been about profits more than anything else when you dig down into the history of it. But I think we're in a...
I don't disagree, Warren. I don't disagree that there's been, the Revolutionary War was violent. The French Revolution was violent. But I think I'm speaking more to the sentiment of I'm going to take my AR-15 and I'm going to affect change because nobody else is listening to me. We're not there. We're just not there, and that is a fool's errand. And the only thing that's going to happen is you'd end up dead.
Right. I know there was some threats against.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I know there was some threats against this person in Congress McDermott, and that this fellow had just called up his office and used profanity and said, "I'm going to go and kill you." And the next thing we know, the FBI is at his door, knocking down his door, and they're going to throw him in jail. So that's certainly not going to be a tactic for affecting change. And I don't think that the House or Senate are waking up. I don't think they realize their own responsibility to the situation that we're in. I think that they're mostly in the losing mode.
I do too, and I don't mean to interrupt you, Warren. I agree with that. I want to focus on that for a second. What we see happening now is a blame shift, and in the video I put out yesterday, I spoke to if we took everything at the face value, if we believe the story they put out about this nut, if we believe about that it was caused by a few talking heads on the right, you'd have to have your head in the sand to follow that logic, first of all. But looking at the situation, it's nothing more than a diversion. The government knows that the people in this country are waking up at record numbers, and I think there's a feeling of them losing control, and that's a bit terrifying because if they feel that they're losing control, then what is the next step? If they're willing to take an event like this, and I'm not even using the word staging it, but if they're willing to use it on their behalf, all this talk about it's the president's 9/11 or the president's Oklahoma City, and this is a political movement. I heard on driving all over the state today, all these pundits talking about what's going to come out of his mouth at the memorial ceremony tonight, and is it going to be a Clinton-esque moment? I see this as a massive attempt by government to shift the hostility away from them and put it onto the same exact people that they co-opted in order to get a divided House and a divided Congress, being Republican House and Democratic Senate. They're going to, they coddled the Tea Party. They coddled that feeling of betrayal by the American people. They coddled it just long enough to take it through the midterm election, and now the first incident that comes out, they're going to wrap the Tea Party and wrap the Awakened movement, the alternative media movement, and they're going to wrap it around this event. The truth of the matter is the hostility in the country is here, and as I stated in my recent video, it's beyond amazing to me that we have come this far in this short couple of years, and there hasn't been more outlash, more violent acts. It's amazing to me, to be honest. I mean, there's people suffering all across the country, and especially when you're getting statistics coming out that say things are getting better, and you're seeing who's making all the money, and you're seeing that the crimes of these folks on Wall Street is they're getting a slap on the wrist, $500 billion for Goldman Sachs, a fine, which is like 0.1% of the bailout money they received. And you don't see any more acts of violence. And I think that's a testimony to the fact that, some people would say it's a testimony to the fact that we're all dumbed down and no one's paying attention.
I think that's what it's a testimony to. I would agree with you there. I mean, I know you're saying that, I think it's to the fact that we're just dumbed down, because you were one of the original Tea Party members, Charlie, and you had that Reformation group, a constructive Reformation group, stolen right out from under you, and you had the same old radical people all of a sudden take over the Tea Party, a la Fox News, and they co-opted this thing, and then when this whole strategy turned south, they're going to blame it not on those fake Tea Party members. They're going to blame it on you and I, Charlie, for questioning the status quo.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, and that's okay, Warren. I mean, that's what leads me back to my original argument of a peaceful noncompliance. And I'm not talking, to bow down and cower down. I'm talking to stand there and say, no, enough is enough. I'm calling you out for what you're doing. Peaceful to me, peaceful noncompliance is me getting on here and ranting 5 nights a week, trying to point out the direction we have been and the direction we are going and why we're really going there, and try to pull the truth out of this quagmire of propaganda that's just being dumped onto us.
And it gets stupider and stupider. I mean, we have Palin talking about blood libel.
Yeah.
I mean,
oh my God.
I saw that I saw the full thing on BBC America. Not that the U.S. is going to talk about what she's talking about, but blood libel is a false accusation or claim that Jews murdered children and used their blood in religious rituals. Okay, that's what blood libel means, Palin. So I guess she's just on crack. Is what she's on. And
all right, here's the left's point of view on that, Warren. And I guess
we're going to
bring her, huh?
That's worse than Palin. I can't believe that.
No. I know, but I want to talk about the blood libel issue. From what I understand of the meaning of that phrase, in Jewish history, they were accused of murdering Christians and dipping their non-leavened bread into the blood at Passover, and this was blood libel. And she's comparing what's going on now with some accusation made to her by the left media with that this unbelievable accusation of blood libel, and nobody's drawn a real comparison to. Nobody's really pulling out what this, what she's really saying. But I did hear some really super left-leaning radio announcers today, radio hosts talking today about the connection, the whole National Socialist connection between Glenn Beck, Sarah Palin, and how they have this infatuation with Nazi paraphernalia and getting into the whole Nazi garb. Glenn Beck's one of his books. He's sitting there in an SS uniform, and then her coming out today with this most definite slur claiming that this is blood libel they're pasting her with. So,
well, does that sound like a leadership term that you should be using, or should you be going and painting targets on people, saying that these politicians are on the hit list? I mean, that's how ridiculous this whole thing is. It's a dog and pony show. Quoting the chat board, quagmire of propaganda. Exactly. Set up. It's a quagmire.
Yeah.
And that's
and it is. And look at how fast you and I. That's a great example, Warren. You and I, like-minded on a lot of things. Not everything, but a lot of things. We talk all the time, and we both have the interest of our country at heart. But look how fast you and I are lost in the weeds on this subject. We go from, talking free speech and what got us here and what's coming down the road and violence, and bam, we're right down here talking about Sarah Palin, blood libel. It's a dog and pony distraction show, and the real news of the day, if anybody's interested, is Illinois just jacked they added by 67%, a 67% increase on the income tax in the state of Illinois. But in and amidst the dog and pony show, real news is left to wither and die.
In a midnight secret session, they raised taxes 66% in a secret midnight session. And when I try to take pictures of the Freedom Tower, that's a top secret too. I have a .40 caliber gun put up my ass by the New York City Police Department.
I hope not, Warren.
Well, it was that close, man.
That's later when they take you out to Rikers.
I was going to be freaking in Rikers Island for taking a photograph in New York City, man.
So this is it. This is it. Here it is, America. This is the police state. This is it. You speak out. Now, if you speak out, it could be considered hate speech. It could be considered incendiary speech, and you could go to jail. Warren Pollock.
Yeah, don't call. Never call up your congressman. That's the lesson we're learning here. Don't call up your congressman and don't call up your senator, because you're going to get a visit from the FBI when you do. I mean, here's the problem, Charlie. Here's the real problem. About a year and a half ago, I did a series of videos that was boring as hell called The Great Reset. And, it was like one of the earlier videos I did, and I had no idea what I was doing. So I was giving it like a lecture. Like, these are the phases of the Great Reset and stuff. We're getting to the point where this Great Reset's going to happen unless a lot of people wake up. And when I did this video on the revolving door where the politicians are the same people in your corporations, they're paid for by lobby groups, they leave government into the corporations, and it's this big vicious circle of corruption. One of the people commented in the video, he said, this is too late. We're past that point. And I agree. We're going to see a breakdown in something called integration. Do you know what integration is, Charlie, or should I try to explain it? And you can help me explain it, because I can't explain it.
No, you go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to explain it. Maybe you could explain it in English. Okay. Integration is like a chain of people that are talking to each other with telephones and strings, with cans and strings. Mm-hmm. And you have a line of 20 or 30 of these people. And if one of these lines breaks, the whole communication system breaks down. That's how our economy functions. It's a fully integrated global economy. So we depend on oil, fruit, food, money, goods, life support from all around the world, and only a little thing breaks. The whole thing breaks down. The whole thing breaks down catastrophically. And that's what we're in the race against, Charlie. We're racing against awareness versus this breakdown or disintegration, a loss of integration. An integrated oil, you ever hear that thing? Or integrated freight, or integrated manufacturing. That's what that means. Maybe you could try to explain it.
No, I think you did. I think you did it perfectly. I mean, there's a race on right now, and whoever comes out on top is going to control the thought of the day. Basically, I think if I'm paraphrasing you correctly, we're seeing a disconnect. An absolute and utter disconnect from the reality that's in this quagmire of propaganda and boots on the ground, you and I. There's a complete and utter disconnect. And there's an awakening happening. Go ahead.
Yeah, but beyond the politics, okay? Look right now. Look in your house. Look at an outlet where the electricity is coming out.
Yeah.
And in your mind, think about where that electricity comes from and trace it back to the power plant. Trace that back to the coal that gets delivered to the power plant. Trace that back to the mine that's delivering that coal. One of those things break, any of them, and you go out, the lights go out, you're in the dark. So while all this political noise is going on, the system is built on such a fragile basis of integration, a little bit breaks, and the whole thing will break down catastrophically. And we're in a race, you and I, of awareness against that. And there's a lot of vested interest, corruption, crime in Congress and Senate fighting this realization. That's why we have troops in Afghanistan and aircraft carriers around the world. And we're finding out that China might be a aircraft-toting, stealth missile-guiding superpower right from under our nose.
Mm. And
do you know how many wars we fought with the Chinese so far, Charlie?
1.
2.
I'm thinking of Korea.
Korea, and the other one was our influence in China, and with the Great White Fleet. We were allies of like a whole bunch of other nations, and we made sure that China was available to us economically.
Warren, hold on. We're gonna take our only break of the hour, and on the backside we'll take phone calls. If somebody wants to call in, 877-342-6673. We'll be right back with Warren Pollock on Wide Awake Radio right after this. That little tap was for Sea Gypsy in the chat room. She loves it when I do that. I'm keeping beat with the music. We have 97 people in the chat room. We had about 108, 110 up until the break, and we always lose a few then. But the break's over, so if you're listening and you want to come back and join the chat, you can. Go to wideawakenews.com, click on Wide Awake Radio, and it'll take you right into the chat room. Tomorrow night we're going to have, it's Thursday, so we'll have Dex on. Friday we're going to have Wide Awake Radio's very own Miss Sea Gypsy. She's going to be on, and we're going to talk preparation. So the next 2 nights should be very, very interesting shows. Friday we'll do a lot of call-in stuff too, so make sure you hang around for that. Warren, we were talking about what were we talking about? We were talking about the supply chain. How does that sound? I was trying to think of something to draw a comparison to what I deal with. Supply chain.
Exactly.
And we have a supply chain that is as fragile, it seems to be, as our ecosystem, and we're having, telling bird deaths every day in different states, and it's like our whole environment is breaking down. And you're saying in our supply chain for everything, not just for building materials, not just for junk going into your Walmart, supply chain that keeps everything running in this country is one event away from the breakdown crisis. Is that accurate?
Exactly. We're one day away from a total breakdown. I can't tell you what that day is going to be, but we're one day away from a total breakdown. I mean, right now, currencies are at risk, bonds are at risk, stocks are at risk, but underlying that are real physical things which are at risk. How we get our oil, how we get our food internationally, how we get our goods, how we import labor value from China. All of that is at risk, and it could change overnight. It could change into a situation that would, make 1973 oil embargo seem tame compared to what would happen now. And we were one day away from that. And we were even close to it when the Alaskan pipeline shut down a few days ago because it's been so neglected. Not that it's carrying a lot of oil anyway, but when that shut down, the price of oil spiked $4 instantly, a barrel instantly.
Right.
And one of these days we'll wake up and we're just not going to have a supply of oil or supply of food or supply of anything.
I'm going to be honest with you, Warren. I've received I talked to one of the listeners of the show and listener on the YouTube channel who also follows every video you make, and I talked to her today, and she was like, "Have you seen a more dire presentation from Warren lately?" And maybe it's because I'm closer to you as far as exchanging ideas than I am. Than the people who subscribe to your channel are, and I would say, well, I don't really see an uptick in him having a negative any more negative outlook for the potential future, immediate future than ever. I mean, I think he's been saying this for quite some time. Dirt nap, breakdown crisis. These aren't brand new terms that you've been uttering. But, and so I decided when I had you on tonight, I was going to try to, feel you out a little bit and see if you feel that we are getting closer to some kind of event that would interrupt that would stop the mechanisms and stop this thing from going any further, and we would enter the breakdown dirt nap crisis.
Yeah,
are you feeling more pessimistic? Are you more pessimistic now?
Yeah, and I think the second video which I did in the Great Reset series, the first one people didn't mind. The second one is so dark, I sort of had 10 dislikes on it, which is just fine with me because if people don't want to wake up, they just don't want to wake up. I mean, the thing is that if you think about it, we have sort of the situation where government is not addressing the things that we need them to address. And then beyond that, we have a revolving door of corruption between corporate interests and corporate interest lobby groups and private interests. We have people concentrating a lot of wealth at the expense of you and I, the soon-to-be poor people that were once part of the middle class. And then beyond that, we have the third layer, which I don't talk about, which is this integration problem. We're one day away from having this integration problem come home to roost. And the more that the politicians dicker around and lay blame and don't acknowledge their own culpability in letting this country putrefy, the closer and closer we get to it. Where one day we wake up and it won't be, people are hyperinflation is something that's very popular now. People think it's going to be a hyperinflation.
Right.
And there's inflation U.S. and promoting all these stocks and saying we're going to have hyperinflation, go buy gold, go buy silver. That's one thing. That's good. But what's coming when this integration breaks? All the gold and silver in the world isn't going to help you. It's not going to help you. Because you're going to see our way of life just come to a halt. And it won't take something large for a way of life to come to a halt. It could take something very small for our whole way of life to come to a halt. And the fact that awareness isn't picking up tells me that this is going to happen. And, as the police officers were harassing me for taking a photo of the World Trade Center, I'm thinking to myself, I used to go to work in that building occasionally. I meet with Merrill Lynch. I had Cantor Fitzgerald. I met with them. I used to work with Lava Trading. I met with them once or twice. They all survived, even though they were on the top floor. And Fred Alger and David Alger and Associates, I used to meet with them. And after the first bombing, they used to check your driver's license before you can go into that building. And then they hit the building with a plane. Okay? They hit the building with a plane. But the first event was a clue that the second event was going to come. So take those two events as an attack on New York City. And off in the distance, you should be able to forecast an attack on a major city in the United States. That's something you should forecast, just put out there. And that's what the administration is about. That's what the administration is about, all about. They want to prevent that attack from happening at all total costs. They're going to run around in circles, and they're going to put their finger up your crotch in TSA to prevent that from happening. It's not going to prevent them from happening.
They're not going to. It's you're trying to catch running water in your hand. It's not going to happen.
They'll just reduce freedom to.
Yeah, you'd have to keep you chained down in your home. Every American citizen chained down in your home with an RFID chip shot into their neck, so they could find the location of every citizen in the country, and it still wouldn't prevent an attack.
Or an internet ID. They'll make every American have an internet ID. Guess what? That is on the agenda too.
Yeah, on the horizon. Warren, can you
on the horizon?
Would you like?
But
are you in the mood to handle? Are you in the mood to handle a few phone calls?
Yeah, let me say one thing.
Okay, go ahead.
Beyond all these political machinations, there has been 50 years of neglect, or even 60 years. Go back to 1945. That would give us out to 2005. So 65 years of neglect in the U.S. economy, in the U.S. structure. 65 years of floating on fumes, floating on the fact that we at one point were the only manufacturing entity on the earth, the only country not bombed out, and the only country setting the rules for currencies. That has ended. That game is over. And when that is over, we rely upon that same momentum from 65 years ago to get through the day. How long do you think that's going to go on? How much longer do you think that's going to go on? 2 years? 5 years? 1 year? Or one event between now and total collapse? Another comment on my videos. One guy said, he was a Soviet guy, he said, I lived through this collapse. At least in my country, they knew that the collapse was around them. So I'll take a question, sure.
No, very well said. You know, we are now going to be what the rest of the world was to us after World War II. You know, not the rest of the world. Let's call it where it is. The Pacific Rim is now the superpower. They're the economic superpower of the world. They're making alliances with the other great dormant superpower, which is Russia. You don't have to be a genius to figure this out. You know, they're making alliances every day. They're trading their energy needs with China in their own currencies now. They're making treaties. They're making deals. China's reaching out to help these. You know, they're buying the debt of these European countries. What are they doing this for? They're not doing it because they want to spread communism. They're doing it because they want to own the people that are owning the debt are going to be owning the citizens of those countries. So Warren, you're absolutely right. We're going to be sitting here, the bombed out nation, looking at the rest of the world for everything we need. We're already there, except for the bombed out nation part.
Yeah, we bombed ourselves out. I mean, look at the industrial base around the country. That's all bombed out. It's all bombed out. And what kind of jobs are we going to create? Just you tell me, what kind of jobs? Join the Navy and learn how to run a nuclear reactor? That's the best job I can think of.
Yeah. All right, James has been holding for a long time. I appreciate you holding so long, James, from California. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, all things considered. I don't know that I have really a question other than maybe a piece of advice. I've been following, the routines that have been going on here since JFK was shot, and of course we've seen the World Trade Center go down. You know, when is there going to be enough is kind of the question, and you can wake up so many people and they're still going to ask the question, well, what do we do? And until someone comes up with a cogent plan and answer, I have to agree with Warren that, have a few bags of rice and beans and bullets, and any way you want to be ready to step out if you have to face, starvation or something on your own, because, like he says, it's almost a critical mass situation here, where one hitch in the loop of supply or the banking system or whatever, and you're talking about chaos. And my main feeling is that same way with Jeff Rentz will tell you that they have such utter control that it's almost a foregone conclusion that there's going to be a fallout, and they think that they're going to come out of it hiding underground in their mine shafts in Ballarat or wherever it might be. And I just almost my suggestion is that people really ought to prepare for that until someone can come up with a solution. I've been suggesting since 2001, 50 million American march on D.C., because until we get back to the Constitution and some of the laws the way they were written without the fascist police state. Who has another answer?
Well, I don't know. Sitting in front of the New York, standing in front of the New York State Police. I mean, I could have argued with them and said, "Look, you're violating my rights under I think it's USC 1983 Section 42, and you're going to be held personally liable for violating my rights." Try saying that to two armed New York City policemen. Try holding up the Constitution. It doesn't mean very much these days. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but in fact, in operating fact, the Constitution is dead. The Republic is dead. There's no Republic that you could speak of. There's no leadership. I mean, the kind of leadership we have is leadership that does 66% tax hikes overnight in a closed-door meeting. That's the kind of leadership that we have. No leadership at all. It's the kind of leadership that isn't forward-looking, and they're not planning for the future. It's not like Hu over in China, or Lee Kuan Yew, or Lee Kuan Yew's son in Singapore, or even Korea. These countries have all planned out agendas to help their people become richer, and they realize the only place I've seen that's capitalistic is Hong Kong, and most of the other countries realize that you need policy in order to get your country to be successful. And what they do is they use their policy to destroy another country in a Cold War, in a cool war. So we have this cool war where China, with the help of the U.S. Congress and U.S. Senate, over a 15-year period, raped and pillaged our manufacturing sector, leaving us with nothing but consumption. And we were complicit in that. People on Wall Street were complicit. The people in Congress were complicit. And China did it. And they plan. Let's do this. And then now they plan to work with Russia. Charlie, something we've been saying, right? Over and over again. China look to Russia. Look at the Great Landmass. Look at Ossetia and Georgia. Look where the oil is. And look where we are fighting a battle in the middle of that in Afghanistan, in the middle of that great land continent. It's just untenable.
I agree. And James, I think you're right as far as your on both points. Warren's right about, if this breakdown crisis occurs, your gold and silver, it's going to be far better off to have something prepared to sustain yourself and your family for a period of time if we saw a Soviet-style breakdown or worse, which I think it would be worse because of at least the secondary economy in the Soviet Union was in place before they had a breakdown crisis. And Warren, like you just said, when you talk to ex-Soviet bloc country citizens, they said they were far more awake than we are here now. And I also agree, James, that the answer is 50 million on a march on Washington, 50 million peaceful march on Washington. But I don't think that they're afraid of that. I don't think they're afraid of the logistics happening on that. I do think the powers that be, the elite pulling the strings of our so-called representatives, they're terrified of James from California calling Charlie McGrath and talking to Warren Pollock in New York and Montana and spreading the idea that, you know what, I see what's going on. You can't put the bread and circus out there and have us to be entertained and let you continue this masquerade, this freak show that you've turned our nation into. We're waking up to it, and they're terrified of that. And that's why I think we've seen this event in Arizona where a lunatic, committed a massacre, and it's instantaneously used to clamp down on free speech in this country. Warren, What are your thoughts?
Exactly, and I think we're actually, you talk about 50 million man march on Washington, they really want that to happen so that they could do the same thing they did in Toronto, is have, take these people, take a club to them and have them disperse. I mean, they want that to happen. And, what Charlie and I are doing is more dangerous to the vested interest than is the 50 million man march. The problem is that there's not culturally and generationally, Americans are just not ready for change. They want to fight it at at every turn. So the politicians, they realize, the ones that are smart enough to realize the game is out. We had a whole bunch of them resign with this new Congress. Remember that, Charlie? Like a whole slew of them said, a whole slew of major players resigned. They know what's coming. They did their looting and their damage, and they resigned. The new group is just doing their damage and looting at the same time. And some of them are smart, but a lot of them are not. And they're just the smart ones are going to steal, and the dumb ones are going to think they're making a change.
No, I agree with that. James, are you still on?
And again, it comes down to people having an option to do something. I mean, I live here in the land of plenty, where it costs plenty to have anything, and you even get people awake, and they go, "Well, I'm sorry, I have 3 jobs. When am I going to call my congressman or whatever it might be?" They're just overwhelmed with everything else, much less trying to spend an extra $100 a month on groceries to sock away if the ATMs go down. It's they've got us kind of over a barrel in a sense with the information war and all the other things that are thrown at us at once. I mean, I say it pretty much every day to somebody. If I'd have dreamt that my life was going to be the way it is when I was a teenager 40 years ago, that I'd be looking and facing everything that's going on in this world right now, man, I would have moved to Tahiti then.
Well, I mean, do you think
and you are
grandfather? Yeah.
Go ahead, Warren.
I mean, yeah. Do you think your grandfather could have lived in a time where the very currency he's using is at risk, where investments are at risk, where the currency is at risk, where the country's the country was delusional back then with the McCarthyism, and that's something that I see is looking to resurrect itself here in the U.S. I'd urge people to go out and study McCarthyism and study John Birch and start making connections, because there's a lot of people.
We're going to see that now. I mean, we're going to see, something to clamp down on the free thought process. The free thought could be the next. Are you a communist? The McCarthy era. That could be. What do you mean? I don't know why I'm saying it could be. It's what we hear now. We have 50% of the population that truly thinks that is the answer. We can legislate. We can legislate thought, and as soon as we get to the perfect pinnacle of thought, we're going to be a more perfect union, and we're all going to get along, and everything's going to be better. And it's a diversionary tactic as far as I'm concerned. A, so they can get a control on what we're doing right now, and B, to keep our minds off of the reality of a breakdown that's occurring all around us. And in fact, it works beautifully because, for the last 2 shows, that's all I've talked about is this attack in Arizona and what it's going to mean to alternative media. What's going on What's going on the sidelines is you have Illinois in the dark of the night raising taxes by 60%. You have the new governor of California coming out saying he's going to cut billions and billions of dollars in spending, which is a great thing, but he's also going to raise billions and billions of dollars in taxes to one of the hardest hit states in the union that represents a third of our economy. So while all this austerity, this is the word again, it's coming back, when all this austerity is occurring in the dark of the night, we're focusing on, free speech is what brought us to this point. Free speech is what made us angry in the first place, and people are buying it. Go ahead, Warren. I interrupted.
Yeah, well, you and I are had this offline discussion, Charlie, where you said, okay, when are we going to get the knock on the door?
Right.
I mean, that's how close we are, and that's the problem. Is that with only minority speaking out, is that because only a minority is speaking out, only a minority are vulnerable. And we know people like Jane Burgermeister has disappeared off the face of the earth. Okay.
Right.
We have was it Daschle that was sentenced to 3 years in jail? Was it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Former.
Well, we might as well.
Go ahead.
Well, we might as well just put 20 of them, or 100 of them, or 500 of them in jail because they're all crooks. They just happen to pick on Daschle, but
It was Ken Lay, wasn't it?
Ken Lay, yeah. So it's amazing. I mean, we're easy targets because there isn't a lot of people in an organized movement to put up a stand against this nonsense. There's not an organized movement that's out there.
No, and I've had this. We had that conversation. You know, I think this was maybe Monday when that's right. I was stranded in Denver, and I called you, asked you to bail me out on the show, and I said, when's it going to happen? Here it comes. Something, you know, you're going to get a call. I'm going to get a call, or somebody showing up saying, you know, what you're doing, what you're saying. I went through the 200 plus videos you've posted on YouTube, and if I edit this and cut that, I can show that you're putting out incendiary speech, and I'll take everything you have, including your kid. You know.
So we'll confiscate your computers. We'll give you a tax audit. We'll go and well, did I do anything illegal? And they'll say, no, you didn't do anything illegal. We don't like your speech. We don't like what you're saying. Yeah. We don't like you waking people up.
Tom DeLay. I couldn't think of it. You put me on the spot. Who got sentenced to 3 years? It was Tom DeLay that was sentenced to 3 years, and he won't probably. He probably will never serve it. I mean, he posted a $10,000 bond so he could stay out to get an appeal. But who knows? Maybe he stepped on the wrong political toes. And
economist Martin Armstrong serving 7 years for contempt. Tom DeLay robbing the country blind. 3 years and $10,000 bail. Suspended sentence. No need to put him in jail. So, you know, it's the
Goldman
same thing.
Sachs, $500 million slap on the wrist for screwing the nation out of trillions of dollars. $500 billion.
Yeah, Ratner, we'll put that crook in front of the automobile industry, and then we'll find out he was doing all sorts of insider trading. There's a two-tier justice system in the country for the people that are stealing the laws or whatever they say they are. For you and I trying to affect change, it's a very dangerous thing at this point. And why have I changed tone? Because people are not waking up. And because every day that evolves, we get closer to that breakdown, correct, Charlie? We're one day.
I agree. And
one day.
Well, Warren, I can't disagree with that. I think that it'll occur on the periphery, though. Whatever the breakdown is, it'll be peripheral to the bread and circus of that moment. You know, be it another big-time pop star dies like Michael Jackson and the nation's focused on that, or a giant upset in a playoff, or this Arizona event. There'll be some gladiator action going on, and then this breakdown of the crisis will happen on the sidelines, and it'll take most of the people in this country by storm. And I'm going to say this, because of... Go ahead.
And well, I was drawing that analogy with the World Trade Center. Said, okay, bombing attack, then check driver's license, then destruction of the World Trade Center with planes. The next event that we're going to see is, keep in mind, Russia and China. Keep in mind the 1973 oil embargo and crisis. And that's the thing that is just looming in the background. Oil
or like you said earlier, we could see something overnight, a bond crisis. We wake up and it's anarchy. Warren Pollock. We're about 10 seconds left. I greatly appreciate you coming on Monday and taking care of business, and coming on tonight. Everybody stay tuned for Jeff Rins coming up next. Tomorrow night we'll have Dex. Friday night will be C. Gypsy, and we're going to talk prep. Thanks, everybody, for joining us tonight. Have a wonderful night. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
When the rich wage war, it's the poor who die. Meanwhile, the leader just talks away, stuttering and mumbling for nightly news to replay. The rest of the world watching at the end of the day, both scared and angry, like, what did he say?